Hey there friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another video here on my YouTube channel. Today we have the August 2021 Simon Says Stamp Totally Unforgettable card kit. It isn't available, but what is available I will have linked down below. So let's go through it quickly, talk about what came in this kit, and usually these things are available separately. We've got the Simon Says Stamp Mesh Zipper Pouch. Love it because it's oversized, which makes it great for 8.5 by 11 pieces of cardstock. And then I'll pull all of these goodies out. Typically you get some candy in these kits, and that I did too. We've got some Darice thin foam strips. These are fabulous for all kinds of things. Then we got the Trinity Stamps Lily Pad Leap embellishments, and I do apologize that I'm so overexposed here. And then we got some googly eyes, and then a little thing talking about Stamptember, which is coming up. And then we have two envelopes. These are Simon Says Stamp Soft Navy and Lemon Chiffon. Then we do have an embossing folder. This is the Pinpoint Starlets. And then we have a bunch of 12 by 12 or 12 by 12, 6 by 6 PhotoPlay paper, and we'll go through it quickly. Again, I'm so sorry that this is overexposed. This is the only part in this video that is, so I do apologize for that. But we'll get back to normal here when we start making the cards. But these are very beautiful patterned papers, and they're only one-sided. Then we have the Simon Says Stamp 4x9 Build a Frog Pond Stencil. This is super cool, great for slimline, and I'll use it a couple different ways. Then we have the Totally Unforgettable stamp set, which originally I'm going to tell you, I wasn't thrilled about those frogs, but I'm in love with them now. Then we have some acetate. This is not heat resistant. We have the idea sheet, and then we have a bunch of cardstock. We have Nina Solar White, some Lemon Chiffon, Soft Navy, and then a 65-pound Nina Gamma Green. Because this video is more about ideas, I did go ahead and stamp and color out all of the images, and I used some Arteza Real Brush markers along with some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I had the best time coloring these. This is when I fell in love with these little images. Like I said, I wasn't super thrilled about them at first, but the more I the more I stamped and colored, the more I was like, these are fabulous. So I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut out all of these pieces. There is a matching die. I don't have it, but I also don't mind doing some fussy cutting. And when that's done, we'll get started with our first card. So our first card is going to use the embossing folder, and it's a little thicker than most of the embossing folders I have, but just follow your die cutting machine's instructions and you should be fine. I'm going to take a piece of patterned paper, run that through my die cutting machine, and check out the texture that this embossing folder leaves. And because I did it on the patterned paper, it distresses it a bit too. So, and that was a 4.25 by 5.5 inch piece of the patterned paper. I'm going to cut down some strips just using like a flag or a fishtail banner. And I am, obviously there's no science to how I'm doing this. I'm just kind of cutting in. So they're not perfect. And if that bothers you, maybe this isn't for you. You might want to find a die that would work, but I don't mind this. I think it looks kind of fun. And I did get a circle. I die cut a circle out of some white cardstock. And then now I'm going to stamp out some sentiments. The inside of my card is going to have two pieces of white cardstock that I cut to be slightly smaller than an A2 size. So they'll be like a little over 4 inches by a little over 5.25. But here we are just stamping our sentiment, happy birthday. And then I'm going to stamp on one of the pieces that's going to go on the inside. And the reason I have two pieces of white cardstock is because my card base is some of that soft navy. So we've got Hope Your Birthday is Unforgettable. That's on one side. So we'll get our card base ready. That is 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, scored at 4.25 inches. So we can start slapping things together. I'm going to pull in the tape runner that I got in a previous kit. And the reason I'm doing that is just because it's right there. And I do want to see how this card's going to hold up because it does have a little bit of thickness to it with all of these layers. And so far it seems to be good. I don't know how that'll go over time. I am usually a liquid glue kind of person, but so far so good with this. And I think I only use it for this card. Then I just out of habit go right back to my liquid glue. And also because I ran out of the tape runner. But I do have a couple more, but I think they're in my other, the previous kit, the one that this came in. So I need to pull those out so I can use this tape runner some more. All right, we'll attach this to our card front, and this is going to take up that full front of that card base. So that is a full 4.25 by 5.5 inches. and just making sure that's nice and put down there. But this has so much great texture. So we'll also go ahead and tape this one on the inside, and then on the other side we will do a little bit of sort of the same thing we did on the outside, just adding some paper to it, just to kind of bring in a little bit of cohesion. I could also stamp one of the little frogs. That would be fun too. But we've got a couple of pieces that have that little fishtail banner, so we'll attach those on that far right hand side. And again, these white panels are cut down to be smaller than the inside of that A2 size card. So there will be a little bit of that navy showing, and then I'll just tape that down to the inside. And it is a good thick card. It's nice, very sturdy. I put some foam tape on the back of our frog that we're going to use, and I also put it on the sentiment. So now I'm just going to attach down our little frog, and then we'll attach down our sentiment after I peel off all that release paper. And then I do want to pull in that lily pad leap embellishments from Trinity Stamps. And now that the camera's not overexposing everything, you can kind of see just how cool those are. There's some little white flowers, there's some little green frogs, there's even little green flowers, and then there's like some almost like sprinkles in there as well. So there you have it. There's our first card. I'm in love with how that one turned out. For our second card, we're going to bring in that Slimline stencil, and I did cut down some of that lemon chiffon cardstock, and then I also brought in some Lucky Clover Distress Spray Stain. Now, this paper obviously isn't watercolor paper, so doing this, you know, you kind of do it at your own risk. You don't want to oversaturate, so as you'll notice, I only spritz a couple times typically. But I do love the texture that it gives, especially if you only like hold down the button just like a little bit. It'll give big blobs, which is so cool. And I like that it seeps out a little bit past the stencil. It gives it more of a, I don't know, it's just a neat look to me. And I like that I was able to make a background out of those lily pads, which is super fun, especially on that yellow. So I'm just using a paper towel, my spray box, like one of y'all had suggested, go to Costco, get a box, and I did, and then I just cut down one of the sides, and now I have my own, like, it's huge, and it takes up a lot of space in my craft room, but it keeps the overspray from hitting everything on my back wall. So that was a wise decision. Thank you, whoever suggested that. Now I want to bring in some Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide spray, and I'm just going to splatter that all over that background. So that pink is going to dry like kind of creamy and a little bit back on there, but I like that it's still a vibrant pink. Our next step is to stamp out our sentiment, and so I'm putting "You Are Totally Awesome" on this piece of white cardstock. I'm going to trim that down just at a bit of an angle on this one side, just for some interest, and then I'll trim down the rest of it on this side. This is going to go at that bottom section. So I'll glue this down, and then kind of deciding with all those pieces that I have cut, which, you know, is so cool. I love when I do that, and it does save a lot of time to just sit while you're watching TV and color up a bunch of images. Then you can cut them out as you need them. But I'm going to glue down one of the lily pads. That'll draw in some of that pink, and then I'll glue down my frog. You could use foam tape. I just decided to make this one a little bit more low profile. And then we'll glue him down as well. You'll notice that lily pad is sticking off the side. That's fine. I'm going to trim that down, but I'm going to take these two little pink butterflies and put those on here as well to make that pink stand out even more. That's splattered all over that background. I do decide I want this trimmed down a little bit because I want some of that lemon chiffon that is going to be my card base to stick through. I don't know why I do that. I just love the interest it gives. It's like this nice stark yellow line with all of that beautiful textured lily pad background. I like it. So we'll glue this down to our card base. And then I do, of course, have to do a little stamping on the inside. So we're stamping the Unforgettable. And then I like that there are the two stamps that say, "I hope your day," or "Hope your day is," and then the other one that "Hope your birthday is." So you have options. So there is our second card, and I really like that one too. Card number 3 is going to be our shaker. So I'm going to just figure out the placement of how I want this. It turns out I do want it to be a horizontal card, so I'm going to trim down this patterned paper to be 5 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches, which means there is going to be just a little bit of white on the left and right hand side once this is attached to our card base, which is just a white card base. And then I have a circle die that I'm going to attach this to the pattern paper and run this through my die cutting machine. This one worked perfectly with this little frog that's sitting in the leaf, and I just thought it'd be really cute to put him all around that piece. I'm going to cut down my acetate to be a little bit smaller than my card panel, and I'm actually going to cut 2 of those. Now, some of y'all might think that's a little wasteful, but for me, this is the best way for me to make a shaker without the headache. So I will attach or put down some liquid glue, attach down my first piece of that acetate, and then just make sure that's nice and secure on there. And then I'm going to pull out those Darice foam strips, those skinny strips. And you could double these up to make sure that your shaker bits have plenty of room to jump around. But I'm just going to keep this fairly low profile. So I will take off the front and back release paper of each of these Darice foam strips, because that makes them way easier to fold around that circle. And you definitely want to take off all of your release paper before you put your bits inside of your shaker anyway. But just make sure you have a nice tight seal so none of your pieces come out of there. I'll trim that down, and then I'll make sure that I put lots of foam tape around the rest of that card. And then I'll put my bits inside. So I'll put a few from that I had in the tray, and then I'll grab a few more from the pouch and even drop it right on there. But it's fine, it's good. And then this is where that second piece of acetate comes in. I stick that down. Like I said, this just makes shakers less of a headache for me. And then I can put some glue wherever that acetate is, so that way this can attach down to our card base. And that gives me a little bit of wiggle room, but then I don't have to worry about bits falling out. All right, now we'll attach the rest of our stuff, which would be our little frog. He's going to be just going around the edge of that circle, kind of framing up the shaker bits. I love it. I love those Lily Pad Leap embellishments from Trinity stamps. And then just like the others, we're going to stamp our sentiment on some of this white cardstock, and then I'll just go ahead and trim that down. We'll attach that with some liquid glue, and then I'm going to grab one of the ladybugs that I had colored and cut out. This is why I love stamping all the bits and just coloring when I have time, when I'm watching football game, the news, whatever, and makes it a little more enjoyable. But yeah, so then I did take that same frog, stamped him with some green ink, and it wasn't perfect, but that kind of adds to the handmade element of this card. But there it is, card number 3, a shaker, and I love it too. Card number 4 is going to be all about the scene, so I am taking that Slimline stencil, and we are going to make the scene. So there's one part that's clouds, and I'm using some Minty Fresh Simon Hurley Create ink. This is one of my favorites for making clouds. Just a nice soft minty blue or minty green or whatever you want to call it. And I do have some Post-it tape, you'll notice, over some of the areas of the stencil. They were really kind of close, and I was very afraid that I would get ink through those areas, so that's why I put that there. But all I'm doing is I'm taking this stencil and I'm flipping it like backwards and forwards. So that'll give you that variation in the clouds. You could, shift it a little bit, but it'll still look very similar to the one right above it. So that's why with every other one, I'm just flipping it, to the back side. And I'm not concerned about that ink going or transferring that is already on the stencil, because even if it does a little bit, that's kind of the look I'm going for. I want those clouds to be, I want there to be color all in there. I don't want a whole lot of white. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next color, and the bottom of this stencil is waves. So I'll move my Post-it tapes down to the bottom, covering up anything that might transfer through, and then the next color I'm bringing in is that Simon Hurley Create Remember Me. And so we'll just blend that right across that bottom. This is perfect for water. I just love this blue. It's like a tealy blue. It's really, really pretty. And yeah, it looks a little splotchy right now, but that evens itself out after we're done, and I end up really loving it because it also gives a little bit of movement. I don't want the color to be completely solid. So once we're done with that, I'm going to trim this panel down. It was originally 4 inches by 8.5 inches. I want it to be 3.5 inches because I typically make my slimline cards to be 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches when they're closed. So I'm going to start putting the pieces down for my scene. And I get this one down, and then I realize I want some splatter on there. So I'll pull in the Remember Me and put just a tiny bit onto my glass mat. which is one of the beauties of using the glass mat. Just put a little bit there, spritz it with some water, and grab the paintbrush that I typically use for splatter. Yes, I have a designated tiny little paintbrush for splatter, just works great. So I'll splatter that all over, and then I decide, well, now that I've started with splatter, I have to add more. So I brought in my Trinity Gold palette. This is only at the Trinity Stamps store. So I will have it linked down below if it's available. I'll add a little water and splatter that all over. This is like the silver gold or platinum or whatever you want to call it. So it adds little silvery splatters all over that background. So now we can start gluing down the rest of our pieces. And yes, those are sticking off a little bit. I'll trim those off later, but I like doing that especially with my scenes because it gives the illusion that there's more going on outside of the card. Put down our little frog who's drinking out of his cup, and lily pad, and then all those pieces, those little guys that sometimes we don't know what to do with in the stamp sets. This is why I like stamping all those out and coloring those up as well, because it's perfect for scene building. I'll stamp happy birthday, and then I'll start putting down the rest of my pieces. So we'll put down this little butterfly, and then I also have that dragonfly and a ladybug and that heart. I'll save the rest of those little pieces for the last card that I make. Actually, cards. You'll see in a minute. But yeah, I'll just put these down. It just adds to the scene. It's so much fun. And then we'll get ready to get our card base going, which my card bases for Slimline are 7 inches by 8.5 inches and then scored at 3.5 inches. And then after that, we can just attach down our panel to our card base with some more of that liquid glue. And you notice I already at this point cut off the excess pieces. And then I do want to do a little stamping on the inside, so since this is a birthday card, I'll do that unforgettable again. And then the sentiment above that will be, hope your birthday is, just like that first card I did. And this whole time with the black, I've been stamping with the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. It's just a nice crisp black ink. And then I'm using Goddess Green for my frog on the inside. And then I can't believe I forgot about the googly eyes, but oh my gosh, they add so much to these frogs. I love it, and I love that there's different sizes, but check it out. Such a fun scene card and googly eyes to match. Card number 4. For card number 5, we're actually going to make a couple of matching mini slimlines, and I love doing these because you can just take a piece of pattern paper and cut it down right in half, 3 inches by 6 inches, and you've used some pattern paper. So these can be good for some of us that have hoarded our pattern paper in the past. And my card bases are 6 inches by 6 inches, scored at 3 inches. So we're just going to attach down those card panels to our card bases, and then I do have a little strip of green that will attach down the center. And then I did die cut out a couple of circles, so we'll bring those in a second, but I want to dress this little guy up by putting a bow tie on him. He's adorable. You could have put it on the head as well to make it a little girl, but I love that. So we'll glue down these circles. Those will just make our frog stand out a little bit better against that pattern paper. But I'm not adding a sentiment to these. I want these to be thank you cards, and so I can add a sentiment later or just like pull them out and write our little thank you on the inside and whatnot. I like doing that as well. It doesn't always have to have a sentiment on it. That frog can be the total star of the show. So no sentiment, but I'm going to take those last 2 images that I had, which are the 2 little flies, and attach those down. And now I've used every little bit that I stamped, colored, and cut, and I love that. But of course I have to do some more googly eyes on these guys. Now that I've seen how stinking cute they look, that's what we're doing. So I'll grab out some matching ones the same size and attach those down. Oh my gosh. It just totally changes the look of these little guys. They're cute anyway, but there they are. A couple of googly-eyed thank you cards that I have to put in my stash now. All right, so that's going to finish off our cards today. Let's go ahead and take a look at all the cards that I made for you. I would love to know what you think. If you had a favorite, please put that down in the comment section down below. Or, you know, if you didn't, don't worry about it. Maybe just tell me how your day's going. But yeah, so if you like this video, hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And big thanks to all you who leave comments, give me the thumbs up, use my affiliate links. It all helps me keep producing videos, and I love y'all. So I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.